pandemic has affected a lot of the way Bloodworks operates. On the demand end, we actually saw a dip in demand right at the beginning because people weren't driving cars as much. Elective surgeries were postponed. So I think it was about a 2 or 3 month span where there was actually a little bit of a drop off in demand. But since then, with elective surgeries being rescheduled, people getting back out and about, maybe not to their normal lives, but just on the roads more and doing kind of more outdoor activities, blood demand has stayed exactly where it was pre-pandemic. But the tricky part is the blood drives did not stay where they were pre-pandemic. High schools provide about 20% of our local blood supply, and as you might imagine, there's no students in schools, so there's no blood drives happening at those schools. A lot of people will donate in their offices. You know, we would set up daily blood drives at a Costco conference room, but people aren't working at Costco's site anymore. So it presented a big challenge to us as far as how do we get people to keep donating. We need about 1,000 units a day, and we've had to cancel thousands of drives in the interim. So the pop-ups that places like Blakely Hall have been hosting have kind of stepped into that void that we were experiencing on the donation end of things. We're proud to say that we've been able to maintain a stable blood supply since COVID started about 11 months ago. So this month, we're really excited to announce that we are doing COVID antibody testing. So from February 1st through 28th, we are testing all whole blood donors for COVID antibodies. And that's part of our convalescent COVID plasma treatment program. That's a real mouthful. I kind of stumbled over it, but basically what that means is if you have COVID antibodies, then you have the ability to donate plasma at a Bloodworks location. And that's proven to be a really effective treatment for people who are fighting COVID. So the reason we're doing this antibody testing is we want to find more people who have antibodies who might be able to donate them to people in need. So if you're curious if you've had COVID or think, maybe I do have the antibodies, I had a bad cough back in November, but I wasn't really sure and never got tested, this is a good chance to see if they're in your bloodstream and then have the opportunity to use those to help somebody who's fighting it right now. Since COVID started back in March, we pretty much immediately overhauled our operations, and that ranges from kind of the small obvious things like sanitizing high touch points and requiring our staff and our donors to wear masks at all of our donation sites, but also kind of bigger structural things. We increased the minimum room size for a donation space. Normally it's just if you can fit the beds and the tables and chairs in there, we have the green light because social distancing wasn't part of our vocabulary in February of 2020, but social distancing is part of our vocabulary, and we need bigger spaces to make sure our beds are spaced at least 6 feet apart, to make sure that when you're waiting to check in that the chair you're sitting in is at least 6 feet apart from the chair next to you. Blakely Hall in particular is kind of perfect at that because our staff has plenty of room to make sure that the setup is just well spaced. There's high ceilings, there's good ventilation. And then another kind of big operational change we've made is we've moved to appointment only donations. And that means pre-COVID, we would have loved to have walk-ins and you're on your lunch break and you see a sign, there's a blood drive. Normally we'd be thrilled to welcome you in and maybe you have to wait for 15 or 20 minutes, but you'll find a time to donate. Again, just due to bottlenecking and wanting to make sure that as you're going through your donation process, you're really only bumping elbows with the person who's actually collecting the blood from you. We've moved to staggered appointment times and appointment only donations so that we just kind of have a very good idea and limit the number of people who are in the room at any one time. It's typically about 10, and that's including staff, and that's people donating at all stages of the donation process, from checking in to filling out the questionnaire to donating to getting a snack afterwards to recuperate. blood and plasma donations make a massive impact on our community. So Bloodworks is the sole provider of blood to over 80 hospitals in the area. Our footprint goes from Bellingham down to the California-Oregon border. And every day there's people at those hospitals and clinics who need blood, who need plasma, and who need platelets. So when you donate any one of those three products, you're directly impacting somebody who is in need of one of those. And there's different needs for each one of them. Platelet donations typically go to like cancer patients, or there's a lot of kind of different treatments or illnesses that can affect people's platelet levels, and a donor can help maintain those at a healthy level. Plasma donations, they're good at helping burn victims and that sort of thing. And then whole blood donations, which is where you fill up the pint of red blood like we do at Blakely Hall. Actually, the biggest user of those, or a main user of those, is women in birth. I've talked to a lot of people who where blood donations ended up actually saving their lives while they were in childbirth, because it was able to keep their blood levels where it needed to be. Also, people, as you might imagine, people have gone through some sort of trauma, like a car accident, or just people experiencing blood loss. Hospitals need those units on hand right when they come in the door to keep their blood levels stable until they're able to fix whatever the other problems may be. And since I've started working for Bloodworks and just hearing more and more people's stories, and we actually have a new Thank the Donor program where recipients of transfusions have the option of writing a thank you letter to their donor. So all information is kept anonymous within that, but every week we get emails from our donor and collection staff about some of the more poignant thank you emails. So I just think at the end of the day, when you're donating, it can just seem like an abstraction, or the bag disappears and maybe it goes on to do something good, maybe it doesn't. Why I love working for Bloodworks is that there is somebody on the other end of that who does need that donation that you're providing. The Highlands community has been, personally speaking, it's been a beacon. It's been, I think, a tough year all around. You kind of want to look to where good things are happening, or where people are kind of uniting for a good cause. And the Highlands community has been one of those places for me personally, and on a blood level as well. Our first pop-up with the Highlands was back in June, and since then we've collected 554 units of blood from Highlands donors. We've had about 100 first-time donors, people whose first time donating with Bloodworks was in the Highlands Community Center at Blakely Hall. And every pop-up keeps growing. It seems like the instant we schedule one, about half the appointment slots are already filled a month and a half in advance. And the Facebook page, there's a lot of support. The Community Center newsletter, it's very clearly to me as an outsider that this is a tight-knit community that is looking for ways to give back. And it really makes a big difference as we've been faced with maintaining a stable blood supply through all this.